Winter doesn't just bring freezing air, it delivers quiet death sentences. Every year, the snow returns, and hundreds of Americans die out in the cold in the wealthiest country on the planet. They're not dying because it's winter. They're dying because too many people don't care that they're out there.
It sucks. It's getting colder and colder, and they keep moving us around. Like, where did they expect us to go? Like, we have totally nowhere to go. Every spot that we have to camp, they come in, kick us out.
A ripped sleeping bag, a sheet of cardboard under a bridge, a few wrinkled dollars. That's all they've got to fight the silent killer this season becomes. This isn't really about the weather. It's about a nation letting its homeless disappear, night after night, like they never mattered. And now, another winter is starting. Are you gonna walk past again, or finally stop?
We do got shit. You know what? Don't touch my lawn. How about you let somebody come into your home and take the bullshit that you have?
It was a real painstaking because you could never really hardly get any sleep those nights, especially when it was really cold outside.
Winter in America has always been more than a shift in seasons. It's a struggle to stay alive. When the first snow hits, the cold draws a hard line between those who have shelter and those who don't. For people living outside, every night brings the risk of frostbite, illness, or even death. The CDC estimates that close to 700 people die from exposure each winter, many found in cars, parks, or on frozen sidewalks. Shelters fill quickly, and when the doors shut, the streets are all that's left.
For me, being homeless in the wintertime was horrible. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, man. This is the worst thing I could possibly think of because it's not fun.
But what does survival really mean when you're alone in the freezing dark?
You really don't know what the next day is going to hold. You really live day by day out here. Some days you just want to cry yourself to sleep because you feel helpless and hopelessness.
Across the nation, outreach teams hand out hot meals, blankets, and gloves. But there's never enough. Cities open emergency warming centers, yet most close after a few nights or once the temperature climbs just above freezing. It's a cruel kind of math. Survival depends on luck, endurance, and the kindness of strangers. Still, numbers can't capture the full truth. Each statistic hides a person, someone with a story, a past, and a fading hope that they still matter. Homeless in America isn't just about broken policies. It's a reflection of our moral temperature. How can a country that reaches for the stars still let its people freeze on the streets? The truth is, winter doesn't treat every place the same. Some regions are colder, crueler, and far less forgiving. And in those places, surviving the cold without shelter becomes almost impossible. So let's go there, to the harshest corners of this nation, and see what winter really means for those with nowhere to go. In Alaska, winter isn't just cold, it's punishing. Temperatures can stay below zero for weeks. The wind slices through every layer of clothing, and daylight fades fast, leaving the streets quiet and frozen in darkness. For those without shelter, this isn't just weather. It's a race against time every single day. Local data shows that in Anchorage alone, more than 2,600 people are homeless, and each year, some never make it through to spring. How does someone survive in a place where the ground itself turns to stone? Some try to sleep near steam vents or beneath bridges, catching bits of warmth from leaking pipes. Others curl up in cars that no longer start, wrapped tight in old blankets, hoping the cold won't creep in before dawn. Volunteers drive through the night, handing out food, sleeping bags, and hope, but even they know they can't reach everyone. The state opens emergency shelters when the temperature drops dangerously low, yet many people never make it there. Some are afraid of losing the few belongings they have, others battle addiction, and some just can't handle crowded spaces after years of isolation. The human body has limits. The heartbeat slows, the fingers stiffen, and sometimes, by morning, another soul is gone, quietly, without notice. Homeless in America takes one of its harshest forms here. It's not about numbers. It's about endurance, about how long someone can hold on when the world has turned its back. When you see frost clinging to a tent or footprints frozen into the snow, you can't help but wonder how many more winters can people survive like this. But Alaska is only the start. There are other corners of this country where the cold doesn't just sting, it crushes hope. Next, we move south to North Dakota, where the wind feels like a weapon and survival is as fragile as breath. In North Dakota, winter isn't just a season, it's a trial of endurance. The air can feel like shards of glass against your face, and the snow seems to settle in for the long haul. For anyone living outside, this level of cold isn't simply harsh, it's life-threatening. Temperatures fall below zero for days or even weeks, and people look for any spot where the wind can't reach them. On certain mornings in Fargo or Bismarck, outreach teams find someone who didn't survive the night. They repeat the same heartbreaking line every year. We got there too late. How do you stay alive when the air itself feels hostile? Some walk for hours through the darkness just to keep their blood circulating. Others rest near warm vents leaking heat from buildings, or tuck into stairwells hoping for a few minutes of shelter. But the warmth never holds. When daylight returns, the streets fall silent again, and the cold always wins. Some people turn to alcohol or drugs not to escape reality, but to fool their bodies into feeling heat. For a moment, the shaking stops. Then their heart rate slows, their temperature drops, and they never wake up. Officers often find them sitting upright, looking as though they simply drifted off. Moments like these show just how fragile life becomes when no one sees you. Even so, kindness still finds its way here. Churches unlock their doors on the most brutal nights. Strangers leave coats and blankets where they know someone might stumble across them. Volunteers trek through deep snow with coffee and small meals, hoping to reach people before the frost does. It's proof that humanity can survive even when everything else freezes over. But it leaves one question hanging. If ordinary people can act with compassion, why can't the system do the same? Minnesota, the next stop on this frozen path, tries to answer that, where Empathy collides with policy, and both struggle to make it through the cold. Minnesota calls itself the North Star State, but for thousands of people without a place to stay, that guiding star barely cuts through the long, dim winter. Here, the cold shows up early and refuses to leave. The Mississippi freezes solid, tents buckle under heavy snow, and downtown streets turn into icy wind tunnels that slice through jackets, gloves, and anything meant to keep the cold out. For those living outside, every winter night becomes a risky decision between finding an open bed or simply holding on until morning. How does a state known for friendliness still allow its neighbors to sleep on frozen ground? Each year, city officials argue over funding, zoning rules, public safety, and long-term plans, while the very people they're discussing are shivering just outside the doors. Some shelters shut down early because budgets run thin. Others scramble to create space, but never have enough. And when temperatures crash into the single digits, the difference between a policy delay and a tragedy becomes almost invisible. Outreach workers say they often see people waiting for help that takes too long to arrive. In Minneapolis, tent camps rise and disappear with the seasons. Police clear one encampment, and within days, another pops up a short walk away. Local data shows a worrying rise in exposure-related deaths, especially among older men and veterans. Some try to stay warm using propane stoves inside their tents, only to breathe dangerous fumes through the night. Still, Minnesota doesn't stop trying. Volunteers drive food trucks through frozen streets, churches keep their doors open late into the night, and entire neighborhoods organize coat drives for people they've never met. Homeless in America feels especially close here. It's about community, not faceless strangers. But even strong intentions have limits when systems move slower than the storms that sweep across the state. So the question still hangs in the air. What happens when compassion gets tangled in paperwork and red tape? Our next stop, Maine, offers part of that answer, a place where cold meets isolation, and silence can be just as dangerous as the frost. Winter in Maine doesn't arrive with violence, it arrives quietly. It doesn't roar the way it does in other northern states. Here, the cold drifts in slowly, settles deep, and lingers like something you can't shake off. The streets of Portland and Bangor look peaceful on the surface, but underneath that calm is a struggle most people never see. People sleep in cars parked near the harbor, in tents hidden behind old lots, or under bridges where not a single person walks after sunset. The snow doesn't fall with chaos. It falls gently, silently, covering everything in its path, including those who have nowhere warm to go. What happens when even hope feels frozen solid? By early afternoon, most shelters have reached capacity. Anyone arriving late waits outside in heavy coats, hoping someone signs out early or a volunteer finds a corner for one more person. Others stay inside their cars, letting the engine run until the gas tank is empty, trading warmth for a few hours of rest. Still others wander the quiet streets long into the night just to stay awake and keep their bodies from stiffening. The ocean nearby hums a constant chilly reminder of how unforgiving the cold can be. But Maine's challenge isn't only the temperature, it's the distance. Towns spread far apart, services scattered miles away. When the buses stop after dark, people are simply stuck where they stand. Many refuse to leave the small encampments near the shoreline because that little community is the only place they feel safe. Familiar faces become anchors in a world that keeps pulling them apart. Here, isolation isn't an emotion. It's a daily reality. Even in this still, frozen landscape, kindness continues to breathe. Fishermen leave extra coats and blankets along the docks. Cafe owners show up at dawn with hot drinks, handing them out without asking names or stories. Volunteers walk icy sidewalks with flashlights, tapping gently on tents to make sure the person inside is still alive. These moments rarely make headlines, but they keep people alive. Maine teaches us that the crisis isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it hides in small towns, frozen rivers, and snow that quietly buries both the ground and the truth. Compassion here doesn't come from government programs or big initiatives. It comes from ordinary people choosing not to look away. But Maine isn't the final chapter. Across America, there are places where winter is only one part of the fight, where loneliness, addiction, and exhaustion take their turns wearing people down. And in one of those places, the battle to survive grows quieter, softer, but just as real. Wyoming is a land of quiet beauty, huge skies, wide open plains, and winters that feel endless. But behind that peaceful landscape sits a reality most people never witness. When the temperatures plunge and the wind sweeps across the open range, there's truly nowhere to take cover. The mountains stay snow-packed for months, and the small towns scattered between them grow still and hollow. For people living without shelter, that isolation becomes its own kind of cold, the kind that settles deep, far beyond the skin. What happens to someone when help is so far away that it might as well not exist at all? In many Wyoming communities, there are no warming shelters, no buses running after sunset, and no nearby hospitals to call for help. People find refuge wherever they can. An abandoned shed, an old truck left in a field, or the corner of a tiny gas station that keeps its lights on through the night. Some walk mile after mile just to keep their blood moving, guided only by the faint glow of highway lights in the distance. By sunrise, the snow covers their tracks, and the struggle of another night disappears without leaving a trace. Those who live here often carry the responsibility of caring for others on their own shoulders. A rancher leaves his barn unlocked so travelers can sleep inside. A librarian gathers hats and scarves for anyone who might need them. A retired nurse drives lonely back rows with hot coffee and a small medical bag, checking on people most of the world doesn't know exist. These quiet acts will never appear on the news, but they keep compassion alive in a place where government support often feels absent. The tragedy of Wyoming isn't only the cold, it's the invisibility. Too few eyes watching, too few voices demanding change. People don't disappear with screams here. They fade into the winter with nothing but a whisper. And in that silence, another danger grows. Because when the body starts to freeze, the mind begins searching for warmth in whatever form it can find. And that's where the next story begins, not with the snow outside, but with the fire people try to hold on to inside. Winter has a way of revealing what's already fragile. For people forced to survive outdoors, the cold strips away warmth, while addiction robs them of strength. Together, those two forces create a quiet, deadly storm, one that takes lives long before help ever shows up. In cities across the country, the connection between freezing nights and substance use has become impossible to overlook. Health workers in places like Anchorage, Minneapolis, and Denver say overdose numbers regularly spike during the coldest weeks of the year. When people are desperate to feel warmth for even a few minutes, they turn to whatever numbs the cold: alcohol, opioids, fentanyl, anything that brings temporary comfort. Why do so many rely on these substances when the temperature crashes? It's not just about choice. When your fingers go stiff, your teeth chatter, and the cold feels like it's crawling under your skin, anything that promises heat feels like a lifeline. These drugs fool the brain into thinking the body is warming up, but at the same time, they slow breathing, dull reflexes, and lower the heart rate. That's why emergency responders now carry Narcan right alongside blankets, hand warmers, and hot meals. They're not facing one emergency, they're fighting two crises that fuel one another: exposure and addiction. Every winter, outreach teams describe heartbreaking scenes. People found unconscious only steps from shelter doors that closed hours earlier. Others are discovered in cars that no longer start, or in abandoned houses where the cold crept in silently. The tragedy isn't only that winter is unforgiving, it's that so many of these deaths could be avoided. Public health experts call it a dual emergency, a collision between social neglect and substance dependence, made lethal by freezing temperatures. And yet, even amid this bleak reality, signs of resilience still appear. A man chooses treatment after watching a friend lose his life to an overdose. A young woman finally accepts a ride to a shelter after weeks of refusing help. Volunteers talk about small victories, moments when someone says yes to surviving another day. In winter, those choices aren't simple. They're acts of courage. Addiction in cold climates has never been about moral failure. It's about people trying to survive in a system that often overlooks them until it's too late. Access to health care, prevention programs, and consistent outreach matter just as much as food, blankets, or a warm bed. If communities commit to long-term support, not just temporary fixes, fewer lives will end silently in the cold. But one question remains: how did a country with so many resources allow this level of suffering to become normal? Winter will always return, but our indifference doesn't have to. As the snow begins to fall once again, we have to ask whether we're ready to stop looking away, or if we'll let the same story unfold all over again. When the snow finally melts and the headlines disappear, most people move on with their lives. But for those who spent the winter on sidewalks, in cars, or under bridges, the damage doesn't melt away with the ice. Frostbite becomes infection. Fear turns into lingering trauma, and the memory of the storm remains long after the weather warmed. Every year, we say we'll improve things, yet each winter brings the same quiet heartbreak, a repeating cycle of survival, neglect, and abandonment that defines what it means to be unseen. Why do we let this continue? Maybe because the suffering happens silently, slowly, when no one has to witness it. There are no flashing lights when someone freezes alone behind a warehouse. No breaking news banners for the man who dies in his car, because every shelter bed was already taken. Indifference has settled into our culture like a second winter. Not cold in temperature, but cold in compassion. We've learned how to look away without noticing we're doing it. In many ways, this is the real face of America's winter homelessness crisis. Their eyes follow me long after the camera stops recording, not because of what they've lost, but because of what we're losing when we stop seeing them as human. So maybe the real question isn't how the homeless make it through the cold. Maybe the question is how we do, how we as a society manage to carry the weight of looking away. Because the snow will fall again. It always does. And whether we want to admit it or not, the story of America will continue to be written in the frost, in the silence, and in the choices we make when winter returns.